LinkedIn presents.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development, where we share original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We hope you join us often for practitioner-oriented content around all things related to leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations Podcast? Enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page, and please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Dr. Alan M. Patterson about his book, Burn Ladders, Build Bridges, Pursuing Work with Meaning and Purpose. Dr. Alan Patterson, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Well, thank you, sir. My pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from Wisconsin. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about your book, Burn Ladders, Build Bridges, Pursuing Work with Meaning and Purpose. I love that title. There's a lot there, and we're going to unpack it and explore the topics within your book here together in just a moment. Before we get started, I wanted to share Alan's bio with everybody. Dr. Alan M. Patterson is an organizational development consultant specializing in executive and leadership development. Having led hundreds of clients for over 4 decades, he continues to ignore standard coaching methods, opting to pursue and lead clients down the path of meaningful careers that are not only successful, but also rewarding. He's worked with everyone from the Federal Reserve Bank to Hewlett-Packard to Major League Baseball and the United States Navy. And I could go on, but I'm going to pause there. Alan, anything else you would like to share with me or the audience by way of your background before we dive on in?
Sure. Well, that sounds like an impressive list, but when you look at what the projects were, I've worked with some great companies, large and small. As you know, the large companies, they tend to be more of a programmatic kind of thing. The small companies, individual groups are the ones you really kind of dig in, do a sheep dip program. It's like, no, let's talk about your job, your role, your responsibilities, your organization. So I've loved it. I've been doing this for 40 years and kind of setting sun on this, but I don't think there's anything cooler than people talking about the kind of work they do. It just intrigues me what jobs people have.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, why don't we start by you laying out for us the why behind this book? I think it's always interesting to me why authors generally, but also consultants specifically in this kind of a genre, why they decide to write a book. And so why this book, why now, and what are you hoping to contribute through your book?
Well, thanks for that. I think there's 2 related reasons. One was sparked by a scientist that I was an engineer that I was working with several years ago, who, when I came into the building, I just had to see me. It's like, what's the problem? Well, I didn't get the promotion I was supposed to get. Really? I was shocked. I said, well, what happened? And she said, I don't know. I said, have you talked to your boss? And she said, no. And I said, well, you really need to do that. And she looked at me and said, why would I do that? And it's like, I don't know. It took me a couple of days for that to sink in, to think that somebody felt that they were either going to be tooting their own horn or it should be obvious. Or anyway, that stuck with me, John. I couldn't get that out of my head. I call it Emma's dilemma. And so there was Emma. But in the meantime, I was working on converting some of my stuff to the internet, and a person I was working with you know the nomenclature. It's like, okay, what's your drive here? And it's, yeah, okay, well, I'm a consultant like everybody else. And it's like, well, who's the enemy? And I know. She asked me, what's my value proposition? And I asked people that. I said, I have no idea. Well, she said, who's the enemy? I said, that one I got. The enemy is a corporate ladder. So that spurred me on to think, obviously some of this is autobiographical, is the number of people in all types of positions, but particularly in professional positions, that think it's up to somebody else to determine what their career is. Emma's saying, why would she talk to her boss? And from there, it's like, okay, I think the focus has been wrong. And then I go back and want to throw in some American history and manifest destiny and what we think is our right. And, the American dream. And while all those things are very laudatory, all those things sound great, it's like, but who really makes it? And it's a mirage. The latter is a mirage. It can be inspirational to some and a disappointment to many more. So I'm thinking, well, why would that be the pursuit? Why would that be the only pursuit? And it's not. And that's when I realized the importance of relationships. So what am I telling you that you don't know, or that any consultant doesn't know, or any good leader doesn't know? Oh, it's all about the people. We're in the people business. Well, some of that is BS. That's, lip service. But if you thought, okay, if what I'm looking for is something that really is important and critical to me, maybe I could be focusing on the people with whom I'm building relationships rather than think, okay, John, who do you know at Hewlett Packard? Can you get me in there? There's like, nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But to think that somebody's going to take over the control of your career, no, it's not going to happen, especially in the way work's being done now. So there it is. Pursue meaning and purpose. And you're not going to get there by climbing the ladder, because most people don't even know what's at the top, even the people at the top. So there's my soliloquy.
Yeah, no, I like that. So, I mean, this traditional mindset of climbing the corporate ladder, in many ways, it was suited, maybe it served a purpose in a previous generation. But I think in the modern world of work, like you said, I just don't see how climbing the corporate ladder works for the vast majority of workers. For one thing, many workers in today's economy aren't employees at all. They're contract workers, right. They're contingent workers, they're gig workers. The whole idea of climbing the corporate ladder doesn't even apply at all. And that percentage of the labor force continues to rise. Right. But even those who work in a more corporate setting, they tend to switch jobs so often. So I guess if you pivot this idea of climbing the corporate ladder to a career corporate ladder where you switch companies to jump, and move up in positions, that might make more sense. But people don't stay at the same company for all that long anymore. And so moving up hardly makes sense. And my experience has been with most organizations, they often don't even really promote a whole lot from within. They tend to bring people often in from the outside. And so if you want to move up in pay and responsibility, and you want to have new leadership roles and opportunities for growth and stretch, oftentimes your only choice is to leave your current company and go somewhere else. And all of that, coupled with what you just said about like not really knowing what's at the top that you're chasing anyways, I think it makes this whole it's the Skype hunt almost. You're chasing something that is not even real.
Right. Listen, I think it did serve a purpose. I mean, well, some of this came out of, as I say, my own experience and my own thinking around this. You go back, and I did that kind of research into scientific management, and you realize, okay, when the machines became the thing, the work became the thing, not the value of tilling the soil. And it really, it's when you think about it, it's not that long ago in our history, but it made sense. You take the work, you break it into small pieces, you give somebody the responsibility. You have to put somebody over them. I mean, but God forbid they be on their own. And then you start to see the separation of, okay, how would you get from A to B? And it gives it what looks like a career path, or at least a way forward. Well, it has worked to some extent, because there wasn't anything else, but it didn't take long for the biases to come out. And I don't think I have to enumerate what they are. Whatever the legacy of COVID is going to be, whoever's going to write that big the Bible version of how it changed the world, a lot of people, for the better, have said, what the heck am I doing? And others have said, what do I really want? And I think it's a little confusing, because it is generational in my book, John. I do but feel that way. But then I go back and I look at what's been written, and I think about my own life. I've got you by a few years, but it's not that I wasn't a team player. It's like I was a smart aleck. I was the one that would say, could you run that by me again? Didn't we say the opposite last week? And so working at corporate environment just was not my thing. I just could never have made it. And then when I see where people wilt in those environments, some thrive, but I think the difference is we all come to a point, whether it's mid-career, whatever the heck that is, or later, where we say, what the hell am I doing? And how do I get something? I look at the people you've surrounded yourself with. I don't know. God, that'd be a cool party to be at. I can't imagine what the discussion is. I'm sure it's not all work related. But holy mackerel, I had a buddy call me last week who was an author and a college professor. He said, I want somebody to read this book that really cares about the environment. It's like, yeah. Find people that are interested, and that's to me is the building bridges. Find those people and work with those people, which I think will bring. You say, well, where are they? They're everywhere. I don't know. What can I tell you? Oh, it's a lateral move. Okay. Once you get beyond the money needs, then what's the point? You got a big ego? Stroke your ego, and then after a while, nobody cares. Nobody cares where you work. Nobody cares how much experience. All I know is that you're a big guy on vacation wearing flip-flops and cutoffs, and we're playing, I don't know, bocce, and it's like, I don't know. I think we have a lot in common, and it goes from there.
And again, I think, like you said, COVID really pushed. It was a catalyst point for a lot of people to reassess, to think about their priorities, to think about what really matters to them. Many people who were stuck in the grind and were just too busy to even stop and self-reflect, all of a sudden had time to do that. And many people realized, well, wait a minute, this whole rat race that I'm a part of doesn't really make sense to me anymore. And so when we talk about the Great Resignation or any of the great reawakenings and any of the terms that came out over the last few years, it really at its core, it was what you were just talking about. It's people ultimately saying, I'm opting out of this traditional system of, that's really suited for organizations, but not necessarily for the individual workers. And people have started to reevaluate. And the reality is there are so many different ways to quote unquote get ahead, whether that's in a career or in life. There's not a one size fits all. There's not like one career ladder. Sometimes it's lateral moves. Sometimes you're starting your own thing. Right. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways you can go about it. And ultimately, I think if you're chasing the ego stuff, the money, the prestige, you're always going to come up feeling empty. Always.
I say it's the road to not good enough.
Yeah.
You can't, it's not going to be there. And even the people that make it, It's like, what have they made? But listen, I don't diss anybody that says that's what I have to do. I need to make money. I have a family, or I have obligations. I understand that. I appreciate that. And and when I look at what I've written and think about how I talk, I'm not telling people don't do that. What I'm telling people is I think there's more.
Yeah.
And if you can come to a point where, and I think the idea of promotion and understanding what it takes, I say this is not an original thought, but I think it's by talking about don't climb ladders, burn ladders, and build bridges. I want people to be thinking about how they have impact and how impact gives them meaning. It's a different skill set. I mean, it's all around, I mean, it's all around persuasion and influence and selling, but those are good things. Those are the
Yeah.
things that people, it's like, I want to make a difference. Okay, sit down. I got some stuff for you, and it's not how to just schmooze your boss, nothing, but there's more. And there are more people feeling that way. I think that's, if you just took the engagement statistic, I don't know. I, I don't know what it means. 33% of people at work are engaged. I don't know what that means, but I just know it's pathetic. I mean, what's the deal? And part of that, I don't blame on corporations. This has been my mantra. It's like, hey, guess who owns your career? Development. And like you said, you want to go sideways. There's no path. It's nonlinear. Where is it written that it's linear? It's not. The people that I've met and loved and worked with and enjoyed the most, heck, where'd they come from? I don't know. It's just they're there. And it's this shared experience and meaning that really makes a difference. And I'm not, people have asked me, oh, well, you're not goal oriented. You're telling people not to be goal oriented if they're not climbing the ladder. No, some of the greatest joys, I can speak for myself. I ran a couple of marathons. You don't think I was pumped when I crossed the finish line? That was cool for me. But people, there's nothing wrong with big accomplishments. It's what does it mean and how is it internalized? And what does it mean to help the people around you be successful? I probably sound like Deepak Chopra, which would be a compliment. But it's like, I don't know. That's really how it works. Can you make the people around you successful? Stop worrying about yourself. People care about you to the extent that you enrich their lives. And there are people that love you just for that reason. And then there are people that appreciate you. What a compliment for someone to say, I appreciate you, John.
I think ultimately it's different for everybody.
Absolutely.
And it depends on life stage. It depends on career stage. Like you said, there's no shame in seeking a good paying job or having career ambitions and career goals. And there's no shame in, pursuing an executive level position. Like, we need good executives. We need good CEOs. The point is, I guess, really, what's your why behind it? And if you have a shallow why, it's hard to sustain, especially when things get really messy, really challenging in an infinitely complex, nuanced world. And so that's what leads to burnout. I mean, eventually people start to step back and just ask themselves, why am I doing this? If you don't have a compelling why. Now, that's not to say everyone who's an executive doesn't have a compelling why. I think many do. And that's the point. Like, if they do, that's fantastic. But if you are just trying to get ahead so you can get that next car, or so that your peer group will think, oh, you're special because you got a promotion, or like, if that's your why, it's always going to be empty. That's not true meaning and purpose. And while you need to, make money to provide for your needs and to take care of your family and, give back to your community, etc., there's a certain point where getting more doesn't really do anything for you in terms of that meaning and purpose. And but yet people tend to endlessly pursue the more, the extra stuff, the higher pay, the higher levels of positions for the prestige. And so I guess all we're suggesting is just check yourself and ask yourself why. If it's consistent with your goals and with your meaning and purpose, by all means, please pursue it. But if you're just pursuing it for the ego, perhaps think about how can you connect more in meaningful ways in using your terminology, build more bridges to people who are doing similar types of cool stuff, so that you can be re-energized in the work that you do every day and really have an impact in the world. That impact can be with your family, that can be in your neighborhood and your community, it can be in your workplace, it can be in a lot of different ways. But ultimately, unless you're pursuing, that kind of meaning and purpose connected with impact and connecting with people who you can support and they can support you, it's you're going to get to the end of your life and you're going to be wondering, what did I spend the last 40 years on?
You probably are familiar with Clayton Christensen.
Yeah.
This, I wish I could claim this as my own. I wish I had met him. And I understand there's an institute that I think that's run by his daughter, but it's like, how will you measure the success of your life? I mean, here's a guy that got into such detail about innovation and blowing things up. And it's like, that's pretty cool. And then it's like, I don't know how many of my kids' soccer games did I miss? And, you don't get any of that time back. So there's that part of it. I'm just saying that I love that. I love that thought. How do you measure the success of your life? And I say for me, it's the extent to which I can help others create meaning and purpose. And it's made me, I get a little bit nuts. I'm a little bit whacked out and love to swear and all that kind of stuff. And it's, I need the attention. And it's like, why would you, for example, how long will you work for somebody that's really a terrible boss?
Yeah.
Where you're being dissed every day. Don't do that. Don't.
Life is too short.
Yeah, well, I'm saying too, even the latter, John, when you think about it, the images work for me. And of course, I love this kind of stuff because you can, build big bridges and you can put people on the bridges, which is what you do. You create those relationships. But the ladder itself, there's always a gap. And when people are thinking that it's a gap, and listen, I know in leadership development, we talk a lot about the gaps, but maybe that's a contribution that Gallup has brought to it, and others, I suppose. What I'm saying is that why would you continue to be in a situation where you feel you are not good enough? Not that you didn't get the job, not that you didn't get the promotion. I understand that. But why would you be in a state or situation where I told you, John, buddy, you're never going to take that next step. That's just, I don't see how that's going to happen. And you're thinking to yourself, well, if you're thinking in a straight line, yeah, but my God, I look at all the things you're doing. How many ways you want to go on this? I'd say it's limitless, and it's not a limit. It's building the relationships with people the way I've described it, that are interested and interesting in your life and help others succeed. It's like, okay, here are the 5 commandments of Alan Patterson. It's like, don't make it complicated. Don't worry. Everybody's worried about changing the culture. I'm saying, no, change your view on what's critical and important, and go out and kick some butt and have impact and find other people that believe what you do.
Yeah. Well, and just maybe the last point to just reinforce what you were just saying about Clayton Christensen. For anyone who's not familiar with Clayton Christensen and his work, you definitely would be well worth your time to go check it out. Not only his disruptive innovation work, but the meaning and purpose and understanding what's most important to you. He wrote a really great book later in his life that is powerful. And coming back to everything we've been talking about this last half hour, Clayton Christensen is incredibly accomplished person. I mean, he's a Harvard professor, like a leading global thought leader and consultant, amazing research, in the top list of like anyone's list of like top management thinkers in the world. He's at the top of it, right? Here's a guy that has accomplished everything, not to mention he had an amazing family and wonderful children and grandchildren. Like he kind of had it all, right? And so you look at someone like him, do you think he set goals? Absolutely. Did he have ambitions? Absolutely he did. But he also didn't lose sight of why he was doing what he was doing, and he had a reason behind it. And ultimately that purpose was he wanted to make the world a better place. He wanted to serve those around him. He wanted to improve the lives of people in different organizations. And it from his family to his community to Harvard to the world of work generally, that was his mission, and he was very successful at it. So we're not saying don't have goals, we're not saying don't have ambitions, but we're saying be grounded in what you're doing, why you're doing it.
Yeah. Well put. I'm succinct is not, and parsimony are not my specialty.
Well, Alan, this has been a great conversation. I note the time and I need to let you go here in just a minute. But before we wrap things up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Okay. Well, the website is ladderburners.com, so that'll be easy to remember. And dralanmpatterson.com. Those two are connected. Will give you some additional information, articles, blogs, that kinds of things. The book is like every other book in the world, like every other thing in the world, is at Amazon. So that would be probably the easiest way to connect, to get the book. Final word, John. First of all, there are no accidents. That's what I say. The people that I interviewed say, "Oh yeah, it was just serendipitous that I met John." No, baloney. It's not. My final thought is, it's not about you. Your life is not about you. I'm sorry. Your life is your ability to have impact and give meaning and purpose to other people. And I'm not speaking in a religious sense. I'm just saying in every sense. And why not in your job? You don't have to do this on a Sunday. You can do this every day. Yeah.
Well said, Alan. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Alan can do for you. Check out his book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations podcast? Enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page, and please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.